The new Economist magazine is out 2026 looking forward. I'm coming at it from a magnetic field decline and very intense stratospheric disruption in the middle of the picture, showing us exactly where the periphery of that's going to be heading south and how it might disrupt crops. So let's take a look at how 2026 may turn out. The year ahead, the world ahead. Economist magazine doing this every single year. This is the 2026 cover, which we'll come back to. But just if you're not familiar with this, the world in 2017, like they try to do these interesting forecasts of things through symbology and iconography about what's going to happen through the next year. And if you can decipher it in advance, as in 2025, you have to look in hindsight now to see what this really meant. And if there's anything now to be known from the 2024 magazine, not specific events, but also agendas that are continued forward. 2026, what do we see? We need to widen that out for a second. So when you first start looking at this, a lot of chaos in here, a lot of fragmentation, broken pieces. But what caught my eye before any of the events, maybe the red tanks, the 250 in the middle. Otherwise, I saw that blue and all I thought was, well, that looks very, very similar to weather patterns that you're looking at in terms of a planetary view from the North Pole down. So start with the 250. That's the American anniversary, but off to the left there, or the 9 o'clock up to 10 o'clock position there. There's a big missile coming out of what's that? A shipping container. Who knows what country that's from? Unknown. The crosses definitely show some sort of stock market trend. And if you go directly south of that, I see the dollar in crumbles or crumbling. So that could be an economic sign. But then I come back to the weather, and what is the conditions for crop to be grown throughout the year is a huge one too, because no favorable weather, no favorable harvests. So when you see the blue, in my mind, it looks a little something like this. We're at the top of the North Pole. I put the green circle there for you, and you're looking down over Greenland. So I circled it here, actually drew a line to make it a little bit easier to discern. Now, do you see the periphery boundary of what that was in terms of how these two now match up with jet streams and jet stream anomalies? And just for a frame of reference there, that Viking ship that you see in the yellow circle, that's Greenland. And if you look directly across there where it says 250, that is the atmospheric anomaly or some sort of event. And they're focusing in on this. It's not the United States. It's actually over Asia, because you can see Xi Jinping and the continents are there. So you got the Greenland ship. And then if you go see where Trump is, that's, Canada, North America. And then as you go across, you see Xi Jinping and Putin. That's over there. That's Eurasia. And where the big fist is, that is approximately Europe. And is that boiling there? Do I see? I'm not sure. Let me show you too in a different fashion here. We're going higher up in the atmosphere, and that's why the wind patterns are so much stronger and noticeable as that wave. Now, if you look at the map, I'll square it off for you. Those two positions are exactly the same, either on the left side drawing there or actually on the world map, top-down view. Same, but different. So it's over Russia and over Greenland, which is incredibly interesting. There's a lot of, like I say, symbology in these magazine covers. Now, if there were an event that were to tick off to bring us over to allow the economy to roll over and collapse, and not really collapse to zero, but just fragment to the point of certain areas on the planet have to revalue their money, and then that wealth transfers to another part of the planet. What would that be? The Fed's out of options, rate cuts, money printing, balance sheet reversals. They call it policy, but it's really panic. This is the end game economics, where hope replaces discipline and the illusion of control finally breaks. They're not cutting rates because things are strong. They're cutting rates because the system is cracking. The labor market's stalling. Confidence in the dollar is fading fast. For decades, the Fed built a house of paper. Now they're striking the match that could burn it down, leaving you to pay the price. Every cycle ends the same. Bubbles, bailouts, and broken retirements. That's why smart investors are moving to what's real. Gold and silver. When's the last time you actually held the wealth you've spent your life working for? My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans move from paper wealth into real, tangible assets. Numbers on a screen can disappear, but physical gold and silver, that's lasted through every single crisis in history. Go to 2030gold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's 2030gold.com. Click on that link in the description box below and discover how easy it is to protect your future. And for this holiday season, when you open a qualified account with Noble Gold Investments, you'll receive 10 1-ounce commemorative silver holiday coins, limited edition, and a joyful way to celebrate the season and invest in something real. Well, it would have to be food pricing across the planet got so high that it would take those already struggling to double or triple or quadruple the food prices, and then that in itself would lead to that social unrest. And what I'm looking there on the map is a complete fragmentation of everything. Have you noticed that nothing's really, say, connected? In those previous covers I showed you, it looked like a unified world, looked like something was coming, a set of events that were unified. But this thing is a completely fragmented. It's like you dropped a glass from 50 feet and poosh, all those little fragments went off, and they caught that just at the second of impact when it completely disintegrated. Add in the weather anomaly, and I also want to talk about magnetic fields on top of that, and where would that take us if we become more, let's say, observant because of different energy patterns on a lower magnetic field. So here's possibility number one. This is your polar vortex, and the representation on the magazine cover is as such. But we are already moving into this curtain stratospheric warming event. And I would draw your attention to approximately the 4 o'clock position. When that curtain goes straight down back to the earth, where does it touch? What touch points are there? And notice at the bottom there off the west coast of the US, up in past even Alaska over in the Kamchatka Peninsula, you notice how those are cold pockets that are breaking off and being sent further southward, not even attached to the main vortex. You might want to call it a disrupted polar vortex, but that's a very light sounding type of event where the electrical charge on the top of the planet just stays there, and they call that high pressure, and then that will force and repel everything else down, and it'll be in this wave of it. It recedes slightly, but then it enlarges again, and boom, it knocks another cold air mass off. And this is what it's going to be like again and again across. We're just going to trace this all the way around the northern hemisphere. It'll move from the US over to Europe, over to Asia, back over to China, and then maybe it'll redissipate. But think of this image here, the red and the yellow, as an electrical charge coming in, not a high pressure system. Think of it as an electrical current amplified that's creating the high pressure system. That green, the anomaly chart that's almost off the charts, that is the opposite charge being pushed, repelled away. The darker and lighter that gray green is, the cooler the temperatures are going to be. This is what it equates to. Those are low pressure systems knocked off place. So much power, boom, everything else out of the way. Heading down to India, no less. And it was in the United States, and everywhere you see polar wave coming down to Europe and North Africa, even over, like I say, into China as it swings around through these different continents. So it's going to be continuous clicking of cold air mass, just sweeping across the globe as this high pressure system sort of comes in on itself, and then boom, and it knocks everything back out. And then it's almost like it's breathing, and it contracts again, and then boom, and then it knocks everything back out. Those cold air masses, I just showed you them. They're continuously now circling the planet, at least in the northern hemisphere. This is going to be our winter, and it's going to be combined with La Nina conditions here in the United States. So you can see how this is, well, a possible catalyst for food prices going up. And again, it's all natural, is it not? Can't blame the hyperinflating money or the Maunder minimum cold temperatures that seem to match up pretty concisely with where we're seeing this cold being knocked off, especially across North America, Europe, Northern Africa, and parts of Asia. A little bit blurry here, but this is the Drew Shindell NASA GISS. Temperature change 1680 to 1780. So there are some similarities of what we're seeing for setups in our 2026 winter coming forward here. And when I say knocked off, it's that very light purple there coming up into the light pinks. That's a polar air mass getting knocked way far south, down over North Africa, where they're having record cold temperatures and snowfall events as well. This is for the 26th of November here. That is going to even intensify from the very center point there, where you're getting around the 26-degree Celsius anomaly on this. But then when polar air masses are knocked off, they're also receiving incredible anomaly differences, which turn into record cold temperatures in places it shouldn't be that cold unless this was a pattern previously. And then it's just repeating itself, because here is what the setup is: December through February composite compared to 1990 to 2020. And they think this is what it will be for the anomalies temperature wise coming in. And I was talking to Ransom on my show saying, oh, well, they pegged it at like 2 degrees Kelvin. Well, what is it higher than that? I mean, I thought we had good instrumentation. It should be 3, 4, 5. So you should be able to see how cool it's going to truly get. But almost every forecast out there right now is showing you temperature anomalies expected coming from the last 30-year average show blistering cold across. Oh, wait, that matches up with the Maunder minimum temperature reconstruction map above. And what we're seeing across the United States and Canada all the way down, that is the same dark blue that is in the Maunder minimum reconstruction map for temperatures 1640s when it began. The grand solar minima. Prediction below, cataloged 400 years ago above. But it's all about the jet streams, because if this flow stays, then these polar air masses are just going to wander over places they don't normally go. And as we get higher into the atmosphere, again, it's that flow of air that you can see consistently that is going to get knocked further and further down through the winter. And that displacement, it always takes that very tongue looking. I don't know if you ever saw the Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers album, but that tongue that sticks out there. Every one of these events that's ripping off seems to have that same, well, let's say geometric shape or shape itself. And you have to wonder through times of history here, like what wiped out the Anchor Kingdom? Cambodia, closer to the equator, just disappeared. And I could say that with almost every great culture that has been. They've reached its apex, and then after that, it's almost like a flash of light, like turning off the light in your room. Boom, it's just gone. The greatest of the greats. Oh, yeah, there's some history that it shredded itself out, and they sort of picked up the remnants and were trying to rebuild. Okay, I get it. But what happened at the apex of each of those societies that caused that tip over where they had to then start rebuilding from the remnants? And are we at another one of these points now? Because if we are, then it makes sense why and how governments, world, money, banking, and all of this shenanigans is operating. Because if you were coming to the point where it was at that inflection breakaway point, it's going to be 200 to 500 years before we come back, 1,000 years before we come back to this type of ability to control again. Would you not try to save everything you possibly could? Would you not control the masses, ration them, continue to produce at the maxity, max, using as much power as possible to produce as many products as possible to get ready for this continuity event, whatever it is? Ration the plebes, overproduce, stockpile underground for the continuity of the groups of few. Just asking if you think that's what would be done, because I think very well it could be. Which brings me to the magnetic field and the Southern Atlantic Anomaly. Here we go. Possible part B or choice B as to why so much disruption is coming, because that Economist magazine only showed the Northern Hemisphere, didn't show a Southern Hemisphere view, which would have been interesting had they. NASA's tracking a vast anomaly growing in Earth's magnetic field, declining no less, declining, meaning more cosmic rays, more energy allowed to get closer to these crusts. Oh, the ground, I mean. So we also look at the increases and the decreases on the magnetic field here for the Northern Hemisphere. Oh, wait, that decrease is near Greenland, and that increase where they're showing you the exact same 250 cake is right over the increase. Now, Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observers has pinpointed and believes that these two magnetic fields are going to come somewhere in Indonesia in the middle of that arrow and snap together. And when we get this magnetic pole reversal, that is where it's going to happen. which also sets up and validates that, as was Greenland, where the Viking ship is with the 250, matches up pretty much with that decrease where Greenland is and the increase where the 250 is, right over Asia in the exact same spot. Interesting, isn't it? And then if we put them all together, where we see not only the stratospheric electrical punch through and reestablishment point on the North Pole where that 250 is, but we also have that increasing magnetic field anomaly there too. I'm wondering if an increased voltage charge would be responsible for the increase in the magnetic anomaly. Just asking, because if this is happening and we're starting to get punched through in reestablishment points, that shows that we are into the magnetic pole reversal, which is interesting. It's not as fast as many would have anticipated, but it validates that something's going on. Now, this makes sense. If you were the governments, now what would you do? You would all come together like the first time in human history that was done for planning, like in COVID. You would also come together for every nation on the planet, big, small, large, island, mainland, to establish a digital ID system to control the resources moving forward. The only 2 times in human history it's ever happened where every nation's agreed to come together to do one thing has happened twice in the last 5 years. Out of the last, say, 8,000, yeah, there's something going on. A or B, your choice, or maybe there's a third choice, A and B. Because if you can measure a cycle and you know the intensity, the onset, and the apex of it, oh, you would have a huge advantage over the rest of the civilization and our society and those that own everything and wealth, wouldn't you? Here is your pattern. And get ready, because somebody knows something. I do appreciate watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Love doing this kind of research, so please buy me a coffee. Support Civilization Cycle Podcast. buymeacoffee.com/civilization. Share this with your friends and families. I will see you next time. Bye for now.